welcome, welcome. Today we're talking about one of my favorite topics. Yes, sirree, Bob. We are talking about, not Bob books, reading, teaching reading. We are talking all about teaching reading, tutoring reading online, and I have two amazing dear guests with me today. I have Sharon and I have Adele. Both of these amazing ladies are reading tutors, online reading tutors. They actually came with some past experience of teaching reading, and they still ended up joining the Reading Interventionist program, which, by the way, is going to open. We're going to open the doors again next week. For those of you that are interested, keep that on your radar. We also have a free webinar that you can sign up for next Tuesday. It's called How to Close the Reading Gap, a Full Year with 8 to 12 Hours of Instruction. You can find the link to be able to sign up for that in the description. Let me see if I think I can just click and put it inside of here for those of you that are interested in joining us for that free webinar. So I just want to start off by introducing Sharon. Woo!
Hi.
Hello, Sharon. How are you?
I am good. Thank you.
Awesome. Now, you guys, Sharon has a set of twins and a baby that is less than 1 year old, 11 months, Joshua. Oh my gosh, so cute. I got to get a little sneak peek of him earlier.
If I pop off the video, it's probably because I'm going to rescue him from something.
Probably. It's the craziness of being a mom and running this business, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's always that give and take. I love it. Well, you were in the school system. You were a music teacher. You ended up leaving the school system once you had your business up to a place where you felt really confident that you could do this. Mm-hmm. And then you got pregnant and you left the school system and you decided to do this full time, right?
Yep.
Oh
for
my
sure.
gosh. I love it.
28 years in the school system. I have more than 2 credentials, but the 2 credentials I used mostly were multiple subject, where I teach reading and math and PE and all the stuff, and then a music credential. So I spent a lot of years teaching in the classroom, and then our school got a music program, so they pulled me out to do that.
Awesome. And you even incorporate singing into the teaching that you do with reading.
Oh, a ton.
Music.
We sing something every single session with my students.
I love it. See, this is people's unique personalities going into the teaching that they do. This is what I just love. It's just how nobody has to look exactly the same when they're doing the teaching. So how did you decide to take your knowledge about teaching online and your knowledge about reading and combine it to become an online reading tutor?
Oh gosh. To be honest, I was doing a lot of different side jobs. Like while I was teaching, I would go music direct at a music theater. And when my twins were babies, I wanted to do something where I was at home, because directing shows is a lot of time outside of the home. And my husband was like, I can't, you can't leave me home with the twins while you go off to rehearsal. So I first started selling makeup. And it wasn't really my thing. I mean, yes, I do makeup for theater and I wear makeup myself, but to sell makeup, I wasn't passionate about it. And so I kind of got down with my journal and pen and paper and, took stock of what just really floats my boat. What do I love? And it came out, I love teaching, and then out of all of the things I love teaching reading the most. Mm-hmm. And so I started looking for supports and ways to teach. And a friend of mine in a business coaching group said, hey, you should talk to Joanne Kaminski. And it was through your coaching that I really kind of niched down and decided I was going to teach reading to struggling readers. And I learned a lot about dyslexia and came across your Reading Interventionist program. And here I am with this business.
Oh, I actually never heard that part of the story. So that is really, really exciting. I'm so glad that you got started with that other business person and they knew who I was and they referred me. That's awesome. That is really, really cool. And we've got Adele who's joining us as well. Hello, Adele.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Now, Adele just left the classroom not too long ago. We're talking month or two ago? February.
Yeah,
okay.
February, yeah.
It's amazing how time flies, isn't it?
Yeah.
So March, April, May, June. So 4 months ago already. Holy cow. So so Adele, you ended up 4 months ago leaving the classroom. And I know you were scared, weren't you?
I was terrified, actually, because, a lot of us, we go into teaching and we know like, okay, this is going to be a secure job unless you're in a county where, or district where they rift time and time again, like my aunt has been. But I, in Maryland, have been secure in my job. I know I'm going to come back every year. I know what my paycheck's going to be. I know what I'm going to do. However, it was starting to take a toll on my mental health, especially with the pandemic and just in general. I realized that when I started teaching in 2007, I started in 5th grade. I did that for a couple of years and I was like, not so much. And then I moved to 3rd grade. I did that for a couple of years and I loved it, but I didn't get along with some of the directors. So I was like, let me just move down to 2nd grade. I did 2nd grade math for a while, loved that. And then again, I needed a change. So then I moved to ESOL. I did ESOL for 5 years in a different district. And then I also got to the point where it just wasn't the right fit for me. I knew I loved teaching. I knew I was great at teaching, but I knew that like this was not the spot for me to maintain my own health, like physically and mentally in that system. I needed something else. So luckily I found on YouTube, I found you and another tutor coach who really like made me think about maybe I could do this on my own. And it was never a thought that I would become a reading tutor until maybe like December, November of this past year, 2020. When I was just, I really don't know if I can do this anymore. I got to the point where I knew I was going to quit at the end of the year. And then we decided that I would quit when the students came back to the building. So February 19th came and that was my last day. And I've been online tutoring solo ever since.
Oh, that's awesome. And what was your experience like since you've been doing it online now full like as like your full-time gig, really?
It's been amazing. I have already replaced my first year of teaching salary. So whatever I got hired for my first year, I can make that now through tutoring. And I don't feel worried about my income. I'm going to be able to pay my part of our bills and take care of my family, but also I'm not as stressed out anymore. I don't have any of the extra things. Like I can focus on instruction. I don't have to go to all the meetings. I don't have to have extra checklists. I don't have to have all the extra things that are piled on. I can do the part that I'm passionate about, which is instructing and growing more in my learning about instructing where I want to grow, not where the county wants me to grow.
Exactly, because we were always told like, okay, the county needs to move in this direction, and so we just have to follow. And it seemed like every 5 years they had a new direction, didn't it?
Yeah.
And then you got to learn a whole new set of curriculum. You got to learn a whole new set of doing things. You're like, oh my gosh, because you know their administration changes, and then they come in with their beliefs and their thoughts, and everybody needs to be on the same board and be on the same page. And I get that. From an organization standpoint, it makes sense, but it is really frustrating when all you want to do is just be able to teach the children that are in front of you and be able to get the best results for them. So
exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because both of you had come with prior like reading experience, yet you still joined the Reading Interventionist. So what actually what motivated you to want to join a program when you already had a lot of knowledge in teaching reading to begin with?
For me, it was about seeing that it was all put together. And, it's interesting as Adele was talking about, teaching what the county wants you to teach. It's almost like you have to switch philosophies every time the school district brings on something new. It's like, oh, we don't believe in silent reading anymore. Or we don't, we used to believe in phonics and now we don't, but now we do again. And your program, you get whiplash. and in order to be successful in the school system, you have to sit in a staff meeting and go, yes, I believe in whatever this new thing is now. And when I heard you talk about the reading interventionist system, It was just, it spoke to my heart. It was, it was phonics based. It was, get kids reading at their own reading level that was comfortable for them, and teach them decoding skills. And that was just something that was missing in the school system. I had never been taught that in my student teaching, because I came on in a time when they told us all about how phonics was wrong and it wasn't going to work. And I was like, that can't possibly be true. But they didn't give me the skills to teach it. I taught 5th grade with kids who basically already knew how to read. And I didn't have a clue about how to help the ones who didn't. And that broke my heart. So when I saw your program, I thought I can help those kids who I love, who weren't able to read, I just, sign me up.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, it's that balanced reading approach, right? Like, regardless if you are more of a phonics type of instructor teacher, then you're going to learn some guided reading tools. But for those of you that have only done guided reading, you're going to learn some phonics based instruction, because I honestly believe we need to marry the two instead of saying we're going to completely remove it. My instruction was the same way. We spent more time discussing whole language versus phonics instead of actually how do you teach reading. Like that's what I remember. You guys, did they still talk about that stuff? Okay. Yeah. It doesn't matter what school you went to. It seemed like it was like the ssame kind of thing. I'm like, that doesn't help me with learning how to teach reading to kids. And it just seemed like such a waste of time. It was a lot of like reading and philosophy and all of that kind of stuff. How about for you, Adelle? I know that you had some experience with teaching reading. What drew you for the reading interventionist course?
I think I had a different reason for it, in that I tend to be a very insecure, overthinking type person. So I knew that I knew how to teach reading. I had already had maybe 6 or 7 students that I was tutoring reading with. And I knew what structures, how to figure out what they needed, but I felt like I needed a better system. So I took your course to kind of see what does Joanne do? She says you said you can raise their reading rates in 8 to 12 sessions. I want to be able to promise that. So how do I make myself able to promise that? And how do I give myself the confidence? Honestly, I joined a lot of courses just to give myself confidence that, oh, I do know how to do that. And oh, that's the piece I was missing. That's why I didn't feel secure in it, to help me just keep moving along. There are a lot of things that we already do know, but when you listen to somebody else, you hear the tweaks for people like me, you hear the tweaks that they do, and then you're able to feel more confident that I am doing the right thing. And I didn't feel like it really helped with a lot of my imposter syndrome. So I feel like I've been an ESL teacher for 5 years. I don't really teach reading in ESL, but I know I've taught reading in 3rd grade for 5 years, so I could come back to this, but it just helped me feel more secure in myself.
Yeah. And really, like, the big difference too, I think, is when you're teaching one grade level, you learn how to teach reading at that grade level. You don't necessarily learn about, okay, when we're really looking at what are the stages that kids go through? What do they need to learn along the way to be successful? We don't really learn that kind of stuff. It's kind of like, okay, here's your curriculum. This is what you're going to teach. And you just go page by page. You're like, okay, here's what we're doing today, guys. We're going to be working on page 56 and 57. Whatever that teacher guide tells me to do, that's what we're doing. But I think at the same time, like, a lot of you guys come with so much valid teaching styles that sometimes if you're being observed in the classroom, people would like knock you down for because it wasn't necessarily in the system. And my goal with the entire program is really to like lift people up to be like, look, you've got some great teaching strategies. You know some things that work. Now take a look at where is it going to work with these kids that you're specifically going to get, right? And you don't have to say goodbye to that strategy or say goodbye to that. Like, you can take all of the things that you know as best teaching practices and be able to utilize them. Yeah, I had somebody who sent me an article a couple weeks ago about like different queuing systems and how there's now research showing that queuing systems don't work. And I thought, queuing systems don't work? So if I say to a kid, does that make sense? That doesn't work? Are you kidding me? Like, does it make sense, kid? Does that make sense? Because sometimes they say garbly-gook, right? They're like reading a sentence. They're like, the dog went over the. Wait, have you ever heard about? No. Okay, that's probably not the word then. Let's try it again. And it's like, okay, cueing systems work if you're using them right. So, again, it kind of comes down to, like schools that end up, you got to kind of look at where is the information data coming from? Is it somebody who's heavily phonics based? Is it somebody who's heavily whole language based? And I actually took a look at the research for that one article, and it was somebody who was heavily phonics based. Of course, you're going to deny a guided reading methodology. Makes sense. But I believe instead of taking the methodologies and just saying, okay, this side is better or this side is better, let me take the aspects of this that are good and let me take the aspects of this that are good. And let me blend them so that the kid is spending most of their time reading and not just on isolation and word work and all of that kind of stuff.
Right. The benefit of online tutoring versus being in the classroom is that I have one student there and I can choose the methodology that works best for them. They might want to read a novel with me, and I do have the skills and, strategies to help them through that novel. Or they might be a kindergartner who doesn't know the sounds the letters make yet. Well, those kids would be in a classroom together. Some kindergartners read at level J or, the end of first grade level, and some kindergartners are reading at the preschool level in the same classroom.
Yeah.
So all of those methodologies have to be what works best for the most kids. But for us, we get to see what works best for this child in front of me. And what parent doesn't want that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Beth asked, which have you taught to do phonics based mostly or guided reading based mostly? I'd have to say the first program that I was taught was, it wasn't guided reading or phonics based. It was the Success for All reading program. So the kids did have books, but they all had the same books, every single kid in my class. But they had organized the classes so it was only kids at similar grade, like similar levels were inside of my class, which is different from a guided reading based model. The guided reading based models, I have these small groups. So I have all these different kids in my class and I'm going to take them now by small groups based on who is around the same level as another kid. And then phonics based is just like you're pretty much standing in front of the classroom and you're teaching how to do these sounds but at the board while the kids maybe they're playing with letters and that kind of stuff at their seat and doing that. Whereas I take all of that and I smoosh it together for a more balanced approach. How about you guys? What type of program did you end up teaching when you went to the school system? Was it more guided reading, phonics?
I was definitely guided reading. Being in third grade, our school was very focused on third grade. You transition to learning from learning to read. So they're not learning to read anymore. Now you're in third grade, you're learning from what you read, even though there are plenty that are still learning to read in third grade, and it's still age appropriate to be learning to read in third grade.
Yeah.
So definitely in the classroom, it was guided reading, but I appreciated that because then I could move my groups of 20, however, kids into smaller groups that made sense for them. But it was the same thing that I still have a group of 5 or 6 and I'm hitting the middle of 5 or 6 versus the bullseye for 1.
Yeah. And because even within that 5 or 6, there's a kid who's always learning faster and there's a kid who's always learning slower.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of us being able to do all of this one-on-one, guys, because seriously, that's one of the secrets as to why I'm able to move the kids so quickly up the levels is because I can take a look and be like, okay, where are they struggling? What do I need to add so that they don't do that anymore? What are they missing? And I add it in. And it's like, I just wish somebody had this recipe model. Yes. Yes. And I just found out over time that there's 3 basic things that most kids need in their lesson. They need to work on the words. They need to practice those sight words. They need to do a little bit of word work. And then they need to go actually reading in the passages and books and then the comprehension. You add those elements on inside of there, you've got the perfect model of being able to reach those kids at the right guided reading level book. Mm-hmm. And I have found that my kiddos that are around the CD level, sometimes they go quickly up the levels, and sometimes it's like it doesn't matter what you do. It seems like they're stuck and they need more phonics help. So yeah, you go a little bit heavier on the phonics.
Right.
I love that. Faye said she didn't hear about guided reading until she was in a teacher prep program because she was taught on Wilson guided reading. The Wilson program, yeah, and which is Wilson is very phonics heavy based program, and I actually didn't hear about guided reading until I had been teaching in the school system for about 5 years. We had some people from Cardinal Stritch University come into our school, and they started telling us all about they were looking for the gaps in our reading program because obviously we had big issues. We're in the inner city. 30% of our kids were reading on grade level. That's kind of a big problem. So they wanted to take a look and see, is there something with your current reading program that is helping to cause that gap? And so what they learned was there wasn't enough one-on-one time reading with these kids. They weren't engaged in reading enough. You know, and throw a kid into silent reading. It doesn't matter. A struggling reader is not doing any silent reading. You can pretty much be guaranteed that if you say that it's silent reading time, they're looking at the pictures, or they're spending their time choosing their book, or they're flipping through the pages. It's silent daydreaming time. Yeah. And so, and the other kids, they might actually be reading, right? Some of them might actually be reading. So they're getting ahead while these other kids who are silently daydreaming are getting further and further behind because they're not getting that practice because they'd rather look smart than dumb next to their peers. So they'll pick books that are too hard for them to be able to read, even if they're told to choose books from this grade level, like this passage from this level to this level. They still, it just causes so many problems. But
I actually have a student joining me this summer with exactly that issue that he is back in in-person school and his behaviors are coming back just because it's the same thing during all the independent reading time. He wants to grab the books that everyone else looks like they're grabbing, but they're not appropriate for him. And nobody wants to look like you're behind. I don't blame him, you know?
Right.
So those are the things that we can give one-on-one attention to.
Yeah. And some of the kids, they could just be so brutal. Oh, look at him reading the baby book, right? And it's just, kids can be really, really mean about that kind of stuff. So we're going to move right on into you guys. What are your favorite tools that you use to teach reading online? So we're going to talk about websites next, but what are some of the favorite tools that you use to be able to teach reading online?
I use the annotation in Zoom like it's my best friend.
I know. Yes.
I don't think I could live without it. And also with the annotation, I share my tools with the kids so that they can also write and annotate and drag and drop.
Yeah.
And I figured out the Zoom keystroke to turn it off because, you know, you have the ones who want to just draw and draw and draw, and then you can't click back your control.
Yes, I have.
Find it
so know that, you guys, find that button, you guys, okay? Because you can turn annotation off. And when you are working with younger kids, I worked with a 4-year-old. He would take the annotation, he would just make it all black. So thank goodness I could just turn the annotation off. I can erase his board, and now we're back to business. So you have to teach the kids how to use the tools as well. But that's just like in the classroom, right? You just have to teach them, and you're going to be way to go. And if they start abusing it, then you just say, you know, I can turn it off. And they'll be like, oh, no. Because they really like writing on the board. So they don't want you to turn that up. I use that a ton as well. How about you, Sharon?
Yeah, I was thinking about my very favorite tool for online, and it's got to be my assessment tool using the QRI6 to really laser focus what it is that they need to know and what they don't know. And just by listening to them read, I can tell what phonics patterns that they know or they don't know. As soon as I have them read sight words, if they're going w, a, s, was, and the words was, then I know, you know, that they're doing letter for letter, you know, or if the word is that and they go t, a, t, I know, oh, I need to teach you TH. And so I'm making notes like crazy. And so knowing their just right level is so important for me to do the right thing for them. And then having RASKids where I have those exact books at their level.
Mm-hmm.
And as Adele was sharing where she started, teaching to read, I started teaching to read with a literature-based system where everybody's reading the exact same anthology. So they're in 5th grade and the anthology and is all over the map as far as levels. And these poor children I live in California. So where I taught, they came up from Mexico. And then, so they came into kindergarten not knowing a lick of English. By 2nd grade, they transitioned to English. And so by 5th grade, they were maybe reading at 2nd grade level. And we're handing them a 5th grade book. Like, here you go. We're all going to read this. So I didn't even know about guided reading until I was 13 years in. And our district brought in Fountas and Pinnell, which is I'm coming around. That's why I told that story, because I got to meet, Irene Fountas and Gesu Pinnell. And I was like light bulbs for me of this, not even just accelerated reader system, because I don't like that system. I mean, it was like your child's in 3rd grade and they should be reading N, O, or P. And that's such a vast difference between level N and level P.
Yeah.
So if let's say I've got a 4th grade reader who's reading 1 grade level behind, they're reading level N. And I know when I use RASKids that every single book in that level N is accessible for them. They're going to feel confident. They're going to get a little bit of help from me, and they just skyrocket every single one, as opposed to trying to, I'm in 4th grade and I'm going to read this, book that everybody else is trying to read. And they're stumbling over 19 words on a page.
Yeah.
So those two, the QRI 6 to level, and then the RASKids to put them at the exact right level, are my 2 favorite tools.
Yeah. And my favorite next tool is either Google Slides or PowerPoint. And now I'm starting to transition to adding some extra, adding tutors into my business. And so actually creating all of my resources with Google is actually really helpful, because then I can just add it right on into the Google Classroom. And it's a great communication between me and the other tutors. So it's able to say, like, here's their PowerPoint of words, and I'm the only one who changes it. So they can only be in view mode if they are the tutor, and I'm the only one who can take words off of their list of words. But they're practicing it in between sessions. I absolutely love being able to just go real quick through those words and be able to do that. So those kinds of tools are just really extraordinary when it comes to teaching reading. And if you don't have a way to write on your screen, definitely get some kind of a tablet like this, because you are going to want to write on the screen, and using your mouse is going to get to be extremely daunting. Your letters are going to look funky. Yeah, and very, very messy. Now, my handwriting sometimes can be messy, and sometimes my kids are like, is that an A or is that a C? Like that. But that's a whole other story, right? Versus like me just writing with a mouse, it can definitely be helpful, because then you're just writing on a different thing onto the screen, and it's just amazing. Love it, love it, love it.
I switched from my Mac to the Surface Pro for that reason. Sometimes I teach math, because while I'm teaching reading, the parents go, oh, can you help with math? And I was finding, I had to write on the screen for math problems. Right. My hand was cramping up trying to write on the mouse. So the Surface Pro is amazing. And now they've updated the Surface Pro so I can write with my finger.
Nice.
You don't have to have like the special Surface Pro pen anymore. I can use any stylus, and it's great.
Oh, that is really, really nice, because those pens can be so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my pen, so I need. I know. Well, actually, I didn't lose my pen. Okay, so here's what happened. My keyboard, I got the Surface Pro X, which was like the newest thing out, like last Christmas, not this past Christmas, the Christmas before, and it charged with the keyboard. And as soon as I got a new keyboard, I didn't get the right keyboard to go with that.
Yeah.
It doesn't charge the pen. I'm like, yeah. And so but I have a different setup in my office now, so that I have a big screen in front of me, and then I have my computer down here low, so that I really want to actually pay attention to like my posture.
I've been trying to do that too. Sitting so much, you do need to like have a very comfortable desk space.
Yeah. And one of the things my husband noticed is I was always going like this. He's like, and I was always complaining of headaches. And he's like, ergonomically, because he's an engineer, this ain't right, Joanne. Like, you could be getting headaches because of the way you're sitting. And I was like, I'm game for changing it up. And I do think that it helped in getting less frequent headaches. So make sure that you are paying attention to, your posture, because you are in front of a computer for a lot of the time, most of the day when you're preparing resources, working with your students, advertising your business. You're going to have people there. We've got little Joshua there. Look, you guys. There he is. He's hiding. He's hiding his little head. So cute.
Yeah, I got to go. Speaking of.
I know.
So bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Bye, Joshua. I asked Joshua what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he wasn't able to answer me. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't know yet. You got to get on this, Mom. You got to get on this. Bye. Thanks for joining us, Sharon. All right, websites. Now I know Sharon already mentioned RASKids, and some people, they get like kind of scared when they take a look at the price of RASKids because they don't realize what it does.
Yeah, it's worth its weight in gold. It is pricey, but I can prepare most of my lessons right inside their interface, and not only that. Then my students can use all the lesson things that I've prepared in connection with that at home. And now that I've quit my day job, I have more homeschool students during the day, and they love having access to what the public school kids would have, a book box on their level. So they get to have access to all those books, and it makes a really good perk. It's worth it.
Yes, it's absolutely worth it. I mean, there's over 2,000, 3,000 books inside of the system that they're always adding new books into the system, which is fantastic. And I absolutely can't imagine. I use it every single day. There's not one day that goes by that I tutor that I don't use RASKids.
Same.
Yeah. And so I've also purchased some of the other things that go along with it, like vocabulary A to Z, because it correlates with the books that I'm reading with the students, and that's gold, right
I'll
there.
have that one too. Yeah.
Oh my God, love it. And I also have with my kids that need more phonics practice. I've purchased the Head Sprout, and that's probably the priciest of all of them. It wouldn't be the one that I would start with. I would start with one of the other packages that combines the vocabulary. Everybody always asks me what package should I buy? I would say my suggestion would be the RAS Plus and vocabulary.
That's what I got. That seemed like the best for me, even though I teach a lot of first and second graders. So they do need a lot of phonics help. I just felt like I wasn't ready. I'm still new to my business, so I wasn't ready to make that plunge. However, just the basic RAS Plus and vocabulary has made a big difference. Especially, I have a kindergartner who's reading on a third grade level. They use that vocabulary study a lot to add on, because even though they can read at that level, their vocabulary is not at that level. So they need a lot of support through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it also helps with building background knowledge too, because if you get to find out right away, what's their understanding of this content? Because these are pretty key critical words for them to understand, especially with the nonfiction type books. They may not have heard it. I'm doing one on glaciers with one of my students, and they've got inside of there, they've got moraine and till, and I automatically can open up the system, and there are games and activities that they can play to be able to practice and work on those words. That's gold. That means I don't have to spend as much time planning activities and things because it's already there.
It's already there, and it's already fun, and you didn't have to think about it.
I know. I most times, most days, I would say it's very rare that I actually have to pre-plan a lesson with my student, because my student determines what it is that I'm going to teach them. But I have a basic layout of what I teach each day. Sight words, going into the book. Sight words, going into a book. It's that simple. And so then all the other tools are those extra kind of supplementals I can throw in when there's problems.
Right. Yeah. Mine is very similar, except for since I have so many younger readers, we do phonics, then sight words, then the book. Yeah. But we get it all in 30 minutes. We get it all in, and they're making great progress.
Don't you love it? I mean, just to see, the one thing I just didn't even realize was how quickly kids could read, because I was in a system that was stunting the growth of kids reading.
Yes, because of the way they have it structured, and you have to follow what the lesson plan is for the day or the week or the month, and you can, of course, you're supposed to differentiate, but you can only do that so much to allow them to keep moving.
Yeah. Can you imagine differentiating for 30 different students? I mean, give me a break. I could differentiate now for 30 students one-on-one.
Right.
I get further in 1 hour of instruction with my students than I would get in an entire week with my students.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing that gives me greater pleasure than being able to do that. Like, just to see that growth is amazing. I've started doing this new thing because I was like, what if I took like their assessment and I kept that video and their very last lesson, I show what they're able to do. And I like then show the beginning and the end and create like it's been awesome working with your child video for the parents. You know, thank you so much
I'm sure they love it. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me work with your child. It's been a pleasure being able to bring them up onto grade level, that kind of thing. And I just started doing it, but I think it's going to be really, really fun just to show the difference. Because a lot of times when you're working with a kid all the time, it's not as easy to see that growth.
And it is slow and steady, but it's there. It's slow and steady, but faster than when you're in a whole group. Yeah.
So much faster. And some kids, they explode at certain points. And it's really fun to see that. Like all of a sudden, like, especially around the D.
Doing that now. Yeah.
They get stuck at D. And then once they learn some of those phonics things, they just start exploding. And they go up the levels really fast before they start to slow down again a little bit. And it's really fun just to kind of walk them through that process and go through that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Faith said that's literally why I want to tutor kids. I want to actually reach the kids. And I think that's it. Like we want to teach, we want to reach, we want to not necessarily preach. I'm turning into, a good old Dr. Seuss here. Any other top websites you love being able to use?
Oh, yeah. I love education.com. That's a super cheap subscription too. That's only like $60 for the whole year. Mm-hmm. Especially really good with the younger learners. They have a lot of games, and it has helped me with, like Sharon had said, some of the people that I work with want me to also add on math, even though I specialize in reading. So that helps me to add on some games in math without having to like think and plan them. Mm-hmm. What's another one that I had on here? Oh, Nearpod. I haven't used that as much, but I do like Nearpod because it gives the kids an easy way to interact with what I'm doing versus just the regular drag and drop with the Zoom tools. So I like that too.
Yeah. I actually do give the control. Sometimes I give the control. Some of my kids can take the control and some can't, depending on what type of computer device or phone they're on.
Yes.
I try not to get my kids on a phone, but sometimes that's all there is.
Can't help it. Yep. I can tutor you anywhere as long as you. Yeah.
Exactly. We're gonna have to communicate better, but we can do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna do the clicking, but you gotta tell me where it is I need to click. The other websites, another really good one is wordwall.net.
Yeah. That's a good one I started making my sight words lists for my kids in wordwall.net because you can save a different wheel with all their words, so then it just swirls the words.
It does
for them. It mixes it up a little bit.
It does. It just like changes it up. And the cool thing is like then you can switch when you create it. If they're still working on the same words, you can even like edit your word lists inside of there too. So I was doing that for
or take off for the ones that they already mastered. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so then you can change the game from the spinning to like the whack-a-mole or to, they have all these different games with the same exact words.
Right. You just click and it changes
literally
it to a different game.
Yeah. And which makes it then feel different for them because it doesn't feel like it was the same exact thing, even though they work on the exact same words.
Exactly. Yeah. One of my students, I first did that with her this week, and she said, "Where did you find all these games?" And we were doing the same thing we've always done. It just made it more fun for her.
Yeah. Oh, funny you should say that because quizzes is another one of my favorite ones for older kids because it takes any book, like any regular book that you have off the shelf, and teachers have already created quizzes with questions, multiple choice questions on there.
Yeah.
So I actually had a student. The parent has me work with every single subject with his child, and I was helping him study for his exams that he was having this week. He's in the UK, and he's 7 years old, and he has exams. Yeah, we don't have that, but they have that there in the
God.
UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was helping him study for the exams, and I just pulled on up, skeleton. And all of a sudden, I had like an entire thing of like questions about the skeleton for grades 2 to 3, which is exactly the grades that he's in, right? So I was like, I pull it on up. Dad was so uber impressed. He was like, "You created this?" Kind of just popped it up.
No, I just found it, but thank you.
Right? Yes, I spent all my time creating this for your son. That's how they see it. They literally see it that way. Like, wow, you took the time to create this. That's amazing.
Because it's actually personalized, unlike like we keep going back to in the classroom. Another one I thought of was letter tiles on really great reading. With the phonics or phonemic awareness, they have a free section on there. I don't know if it's just during COVID or if they're going to keep it free, but you can drag and drop all the different letters and little color notes if you want to just do phonemic awareness. Totally free. And then another great drag and drop for the kids to do tactile work while you're working with them.
I love that. I'm gonna have to check that one out. I might have seen it, and might not have seen it, but you guys, I love like learning from other reading tutors, because I'm just like, oh, I could do this and I could do that. All right, cool. I've never played with that tool. Let's see how that can work in. Because
the last
cool
one
thing
I use is the last. Oh, sorry, the last one I use is boom cards. There are a lot of free boom cards. I also make them too, though. But you can find them for any subject area that you're working on. There's comprehension, bloom cards. There's everything you would work on. Yep.
And then you can even buy boom cards from other people who created them on Teachers Pay Teachers, right?
Yes.
Yep. And do you sell your boom cards on there?
I sell them in both. So I have them on the Boom Learning site and on Teachers Pay Teachers. Yeah.
Awesome.
My very minimal packs. I'm building them up.
And how like income wise, how much would you say you're able to make a month with your stuff you've created on Teachers Pay Teachers?
So I've only made boom cards to sell so far. I've made maybe 8 packs, and without advertising or doing anything, I've made at least 10 to 15, one time $20 a month.
Okay.
With only 8 packs that cost $2, and what do I get back from it? Like $1.50. Right. It's not bad.
Yeah, not bad. It's some extra residual income coming in.
And it's something that I did all the work for, and it just comes into me.
And especially if you're already using them for your own teaching, that's where it's like now it's double bonus. Like you're just getting some additional income from already creating what you're using. So you think about that, like you could have paid that easily just for that one resource tool, but now people are paying you monthly for that. So yeah. That's cool. I love it. My residual income streams did not start off bringing in tons and tons of money, and some of them still don't.
Build them up. Yeah.
You got to build them up, and you got to figure out which ones do you want to spend the most time in and build up, right? Like which ones are really going to be worth it for me and do. So it's cool too that like you're building alongside some additional streams that go directly with your tutoring. I love it. What are some of the top strategies you utilize for being able to teach reading?
Let's see. I honestly follow a lot of your lesson plan that I got from the from the course. I look through that to get when I started to get like the key points of what I needed to do with each kid. But I think my biggest strategy I use as far as like planning and what to do next is really taking in what they give me at that lesson. I make, like Sharon said, I make notes the entire lesson and then figure out what the biggest need is, and then that's our next lesson.
And it's even cool too, like if you notice that they're doing something in the moment, like you have the ability to pull something in and not be able to work on it right away versus having to even wait sometimes. Like when we did like in-person tutoring, we always had to wait until the next lesson.
Get the materials. Yeah.
Right. And here we don't even have to do that. So that's really, really awesome. I would say my 2 top strategies are when the kids are reading. This is magic, you guys. This is gold. So if you're still listening, take this in. Like I'm telling you, your kids will read 50% more of the words correctly with this one tool. You guys ready?
Totally. Can you tell us?
Maybe I'll hold on to it just a little bit longer. No, I'm just kidding. It is try again. number
Oh,
one
yeah.
tool. Because guess what? It's not that the kids don't know it. They just need to try it again. It didn't work the
Yes.
first time. That's okay. Try it again. Right? And then it's amazing how many times they get it right after they try it again.
Yeah.
It takes out half the work that I would have to do to be able to go over that word. How do you read it? How do you pronounce it? Or reread the whole sentence and see if you can figure out what that word is, or take a look at that. But try again actually saves me more time because they just needed another chance.
Do you circle the word that they need to try again, or just have them try the whole sentence again, or how do you go about that?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually point to the word. Try it again.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah.
Like, oh, take a look at this. And then my little arrow or my little hand comes on up and I'm like, try that again. And they're like, boom, they've got it.
I circle it and I say, does this say what's it or whatever they used in place of it? And then they look at it again. Yeah, that is a great. Then they're gaining their confidence. Also, when I do that, I try, well, it depends on my learner, but I try not to interrupt them until they finish the page, and I just keep it in my mind to come back to that one, because I've had some, you have to pick and choose depending on how many errors they make during the page to come back to the ones so that you don't reduce their confidence too much, you know?
Yeah. So if there's like a word and it means exactly the same thing, like I'm less likely to make a big deal about it. Because it's like, okay, you're reading for meaning. I want you to read for meaning. The only thing that was different was like you just used a different word in place of that, but it made sense. You're keeping on going. I'm going to work on a different word that didn't make sense, you know, because I'm going to be able to get more out of it.
Change your comprehension. Yeah.
Exactly. The other one for me that I use for strategies is with nonfiction reading, and that would be just taking the questions from the table of contents and turning them into a question. Because now, like, I was always taught, like in the school system, I had someone who gave me that great advice of, well, go to where the questions are that they're going to have to answer and have them read them ahead of time. And then have them read the book. And that's a good, like, I'm taking a test strategy, but that's a terrible strategy if I'm going to, like, if I'm going to go read a nonfiction book, there are no questions at the end. So how can I take like the same idea, the same thought process as what went through my head,
and apply it to life, right?
And apply it to an actual nonfiction book that I'm going to read. And that's how I came up with the strategy of let me just turn the table of contents into a question, because kids are terrible question askers. Oh my gosh, how many times in the school system, like you'd be like, we're going to be learning about glaciers. And you'd be like, so what questions do you guys have? Because like that's the know, what do you know? What do you want to learn? Yeah, that whole thing, right? They'll be like, and questions that you have. Kids would ask questions like, do polar bears eat glaciers? You'd be like, dude, are you seriously going to learn that in a book about glaciers?
Yeah.
No, that's like a random, like out there thought. So by taking the questions,
it guides their questions.
It guides their questioning into asking much better questions that will actually get answered inside of this book.
That's a good point. I do that throughout the reading by taking the headings and turning the headings into a question. So every heading we hit, I say, okay, this is what we're going to have to answer by the end of it. This is the main idea of this section. All these details are going to be in here. So you, depending on their age, you should be able to tell me 2 or 3 things about that when we get through this section. Yeah. Right.
It starts holding them in so they start thinking.
Yeah, it keeps them accountable to think while they read versus just getting through the text.
Yes.
Which is what they have kind of learned to do, some of them. Just get through the text. I'll figure it out later. I already have background knowledge about this, a lot of kids feel like, so they can just come up with an answer. But if it's not, it has to be what we read in order for you to actually be reading about, like, understanding your reading.
And that is the one area that I see that kids that struggle with comprehension, their biggest problem is that growth mindset, right? Yeah. That like, yes, I might have background knowledge, but that doesn't mean that that is going to be true. So many of my kids have wrong background knowledge. Yeah. And they think it's right background knowledge. And so then by the end, when they take the test, they're answering the question wrong because they're basing it still off of their background knowledge, which was wrong and not stated in the text. Yeah. So my favorite question to ask them when that happens is that what the book said?
Same. Or can you show me where it said that? I think maybe it was around this page. Point them to the page where had that information.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that here. Can you show me where you might have found it?
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And most of the time they're like, no, I cannot. No, I don't know what it is. Like, okay, so it's okay to not remember everything that you read because that's not how we were designed. We weren't designed to be, computers. So we just need to go on back and take a look at the book and be able to answer that. So, yeah, awesome, awesome. What are some strategies that you use to get students? Because I know everybody always wants to know, like, what do you do to be able to get online reading tutoring students?
So as I was getting started, I used my peers in the school system.
Nice.
Anybody who could refer somebody to me. That's who I ended up working with to begin with. Teachers from other schools that I knew could refer their kids to me because you have to check with your county. You can't necessarily work with the kids that are in your building. It might be a conflict of interest. You don't want to get yourself in trouble. So I had to make sure of that. But then when I actually quit, I put up a post on Facebook saying I'm quitting. This is why, and this is what I'm doing. And then the next week I had 4 homeschool students from my friends. So use your group of people that you know.
Mm-hmm.
The other places I found students, I've gotten some students from Instagram posting. You have to be very faithful with your posts. And Esme has been so great to always help me with that. Where's another place? And nextdoor.com. I found a couple students on there.
Nice.
Not posting. I've never found them when I post my flyer on there. I found them when I see somebody post asking for tutors, then I respond. So every couple of days I'll do a search to see if somebody is looking for a tutor, and then I'll put my information in there to say I have openings.
Great. Yeah. Have you set up Google My Business yet?
Yes, I have. And I need to get more SEO going on my blog for people to find me. But with Google My Business, I'm the first teacher to come up, or tutor that comes up in my area that's not a center. So that helps too. Yeah.
It really will help. It's absolutely huge. We were just talking about this in Clubhouse the other day, how people are scared to put their address in there because that's the only way that Google My Business can verify you is with your address. And so even though we're not a brick and mortar, we can actually put our home address as our location of business because, well, you are doing business there. So
I have my home address, and I thought it was weird at first, but then I decided, you know what, if I'm putting all this out there, it's going to be out there anyways. So I have my personal phone number. I have my address because that's how my business is run. And it has not been a problem. I've only gotten maybe a handful of really weird text messages, but that's it.
But we all get that anyways, right? Like
exactly.
Everybody gets those. And so that's not really necessarily because you put your number out there so that you can run your business or any of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would definitely you are going to get people from like a 30-mile radius once that's all set up of people who type in reading tutor near me.
Yeah.
And you will show on up. And so I always have people telling me, like, I have so many people each week that tell me, I found you on Google. And then I look where they're looking. I'm like, they're all located near me. I'm like, awesome. That's really, really cool. And so it's actually kind of, I always thought I wanted to work a little bit more during the days with, kids from other countries and that kind of stuff. And then it got to be so easy working with these other kids. They're local, they're near me, that I'm setting up a new business model where I'm going to have mentees and other tutors that I'm working with from the hours of 3 to 7 to kind of hone it on down a little bit on how many hours I'm working, but then also increase the amount of students that we're able to work with one-on-one.
Right. Since they already come to your website, then you can funnel them to other tutors and you create another income for yourself and for other people. You're empowering other tutors to get started.
Yeah, exactly. And my goal is I really want to empower those future educators. So there's like Future Educators of America groups in high school and inside of the college system. They are not taught how to teach reading.
No, they're not.
And so
I wasn't taught. I don't feel like anything about how to do anything until I got to school, till I was actually in my teaching job. I felt like, what did I actually go to college for? Of course, you learn all the pedagogy and all the background and all the philosophy, but the actual mortar and grind, get to work stuff. You don't learn that until you're in the moment. It's all on the job learning.
Exactly. So get them on the job learning right away, right out of the gate.
Yes.
That's what they do for electricians. My brother's an electrician, and when he went to Bay Path, and he had to learn how to do everything on the job. He was actually going on the job sites more than he was in classroom, like his junior and senior year.
Good. Yeah, that's
and I'm like, that's what it should be. Faith has a great question here. She said, how do you deal with people who say online learning doesn't work because of all the poor experiences from this year? I haven't had people that have had a poor experience with online learning reaching out to me.
I have had a couple who have requested, really, I guess for like tutors.com, they've seen my profile and they request, can you come to my house? Sorry about my dog.
Okay.
If you hear her. And I said, no, like that's not what I do. And I actually started a blog post that I need to finish about like the reasons why online tutoring can be better than in-person tutoring. You just have to highlight the perks to it. There's no drive time for either person. You can tutor wherever you are. Even though it's not ideal, I've had plenty of students tutor in the car because that's where they had to be at that time. It's just a lot. Everything that you need to tutor them is on your fingertips. I think if I even tutored in person, I would probably be using a computer.
Yes.
I wouldn't.
Yes, you will.
I wouldn't have all the other tools because it's all in my computer, everything I need and use.
Exactly. And that's what I tell people that's exactly what I tell people when they say, well, can you do in-person tutoring? I say, just so you know, in-person tutoring doesn't mean that I'm going to be teaching them differently from how I teach my online students. It's the exact same process because all of my resources and tools are on my computer. So the only difference is that they are sitting right next to me instead of sitting in front of me on the computer is the only difference. Okay. Because I've been able to find a way to be able to close the gap quicker. I am not moving to a methodology that's going to slow down the types of results that I can get with your child.
Right. It's all the same thing. It's just on the computer. And like we said, we use the Zoom tools. They're still moving their hands. They're still interacting. It's not just sitting and looking. Yeah. They're asking and answering questions. They're dragging and dropping. They're writing. They're doing everything we would do in person. It's just on a screen.
That's it. And I find it so funny that like as soon as I even do the assessment, people are like, oh my gosh, like my kid reads way better with you than he's ever read with me. And I'm like, you know what? It's just when you put the kids on the right text, it really makes a big difference. So, you probably noticed there were a couple passages he didn't do so good with. It's because that was a too hard passage. That's how I'm able to find out what books to put your child into. So it could be that some of the books that he's coming home with are just too hard at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And parents like to put kids in stuff that's too hard because they're just like, I feel like at this point they should be reading, The Hunger Games or something, right? Yeah. And they're like, or they should be reading Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Like all the other kids are reading Harry Potter. My kid's in 3rd grade. He should be reading Harry Potter and he's a 1st grade reading level. You're like, yeah, he ain't going to do real well with Harry Potter.
No, it might be age appropriate, but it's not appropriate for his reading level.
Yeah. Yeah, and it all does come down to, Faith, the way that you are marketing yourself. So the title of my website, The Online Reading Tutor, right? So if you had a bad experience with virtual learning, would you reach out to The Online Reading Tutor? Probably not. So me getting specific on what it is that I do and sharing that on my website loud and clear helps divert me from having to deal with conversations of people who've had a really bad experience with virtual learning, or they have their opinions about virtual learning that are strongly against it. I don't have to convince anybody. At some point, you're going to run out of friends and family, Faith, that are having these issues, because I feel like the people that know us the best, sometimes like they mean well, but they're the ones that are really kind of sharing that information, right? Or past clients that they've worked with us in person, that maybe they're not so bought into the whole online thing. Those are the people most likely. But when people are finding you because you have an online presence and your whole entire presence is based on what it is that you do and how you do it, you're not going to be questioned by what it is that you do. So really get clear in your marketing so that you can attract the right people to your business. I just want to thank you so much, Adele, for joining us today. You are
Sure, it's been
amazing.
great. Thank you.
And if you guys haven't had a chance to sign up for the free webinar, definitely take your chance to do that. I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to close the gap a full year with 8 to 12 hours of instruction so that you can be able to do that with your students as well. That'll be next Tuesday, June 15th at 4 o'clock p.m. Central. And thanks you guys for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.